Okay, so quick disclaimer, this one's pretty dark. It involves crimes against children. So if you don't like those things, get out of here. Amanda, you unfortunately have to listen. So
Okay, I'm intrigued. And I haven't even heard the teaser yet.
nearly 1 year after 3 Girl Scouts were murdered during their first night at summer camp, Gene Leroy Hart sat in a Mays County courtroom as the state of Oklahoma called its medical examiner. Before Dr. Neal Hoffman could describe his findings, Hart's attorney offered a stipulation. The defense would not dispute how the girls died. Doris Denise Milner had been strangled. Michelle Guse and Lori Farmer had died from blunt force injuries to the head. The defense would not challenge the medical examiner's qualifications or the accuracy of his reports. Those facts were settled. What remained unsettled was the most important question of all. Could the state prove who had killed them? But let's go back to June 12th, 1977, the day 3 girls arrived at Camp Scott. Underwear, alcohol, syphilis, murder, forbidden.
This sounds like it's going to be sad.
Yeah,
It's
it is
dark, very dark.
it is dark, it is sad. I'm actually gonna skip a lot of stuff. So have you heard of this story?
No,
Okay.
no. So that's why I'm so excited to hear it tonight. I've never heard anything about it.
So there are some books, there are some documentaries. I didn't make those my sources though, because it's been covered enough times. So what I did was I found some public records, case files. So I'll give a little bit of background up front. I'm not going to dive into like the grisly details because
Yeah.
it's disturbing.
Mhm.
Um, but I'll give a little bit of background up front, and then I'm going to dive into like the trial,
Gotcha.
the section of the trial that I could find, and then there is an update at the end.
Awesome.
I mean, I've known about this for ages. I'm from Oklahoma. Um, both of my aunts went to Camp Scott when they were little girls.
Oh, you're kidding.
Uh,
So like you kind of know like where this is and what it's all about and stuff like that.
yeah.
Yeah, well, before we get into all of the gory details and the legalities of all this, I'll welcome everyone to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the dark, disgusting, and the disgraceful and our mentionables. That's right, we've slipped into something more comfortable. Have a drink in hand. Hope you are doing the same, listener. Welcome. I am your co host, Amanda Kamada.
And I'm your other co host, Blake Roberts.
So, Blake, summer camp is supposed to mean cabins, campfires, ghost stories, and a few weeks away from home. Let's explore what happens when those familiar places become the setting for something stranger. True crime, disappearances, legends, and the stories that linger long after everyone has packed up and gone home. You know, my nephew just got back from summer camp.
Oh, I'm glad he returned.
Yes, yeah, me too. I will be especially happy after I hear the story this evening.
This, by the way, is the last place you would find either me or Amanda.
Oh, summer camp? No.
Yeah.
Like my sister kept posting things from summer camp and everything they were doing. I was like, this looks terrible. Like, I don't want to
Mhm.
play games with people. I don't want fellowship.
No, I don't want to share a tent. Well, it depends on who it is, I guess, but
Yes.
generally speaking, no thank you.
Yeah. I don't like camping. I don't like outdoorsy things, you know. I just don't.
I'm one of those memes that says this is my idea of outdoorsy, and it's me on a patio with a glass of wine.
Exactly. Speaking of, is that what you're imbibing in this evening?
It is. I have a rosé from upstate New York, and
Oh,
I am wearing a new t-shirt. It's super comfortable, by the way, and some tidy whities because,
well, I am sipping on the Surfside raspberry tea and vodka. So this episode sponsored by Surfside
and tidy whities.
and Tidy Whities.
All right, so this is sort of a long one. I'll,
That's what she said.
yeah, I was waiting for it. um, I'll give my sources real quick. So, I mean, I really had one source, and then a lot of it is just stuff from I remember from, well, I'll get into that. Okay, so my main source for this is court records, right? So District Court of Mays County, State of Oklahoma v. Gene Leroy Hart. I've got case numbers. It's volume 3. This was the only one I could find online,
Okay.
but it had a lot of information. So I really, the meat of what I'm going to talk about is that. But my aunt actually let me borrow her book called Someone Cry for the Children, which I think was written in the 80s, if I remember correctly. But so some of it's from that, and I just fact checked a few of my memories online. So, okay, let's get into it, shall we?
Yes. Let.
Lori Lee Farmer was 8 years old and just days away from her ninth birthday. She was the oldest of 5 sisters, but one of the youngest children at camp. Her family remembered her as precocious, a child whose maturity often seemed several years ahead of her age. This was her first summer at Camp Scott. Not long after arriving, Lori sat down to write home. She told her parents that she had already made 2 friends, Michelle Guse and Denise Milner. She wrote that they were sharing a tent. Michelle Heather Guse was 9 and came from Broken Arrow, which is my hometown.
Yes.
She was quieter than Lori and already knew something about Camp Scott. She had attended before. Her family remembered her as athletic, shy, and attentive to small living things like animals and plants. Before leaving home, she reminded her mother to care for her plants while she was gone. Doris Denise Milner was 10, though the people who knew her generally called her Denise, her middle name. She was a straight A student and had already been accepted into a school designed for exceptionally bright children. Her father was a Tulsa police officer. Denise had sold enough Girl Scout cookies to attend Camp Scott, so that was like how she got into it.
Whoa, she must have really like sold a shit ton of
Yeah,
cookies.
she was out there hustling those
Yeah,
cookies.
I know. Those are good though.
Yeah. So the plan was that she was going to go with several of her friends, but their plans changed, and so all the friends backed out.
Oh,
Um, so Denise no longer wanted to go. Her mother encouraged her to try it, promising that if Denise became too homesick, she could call and come home. Sort of sad because we know
yeah,
what's going to happen.
that's
On the bus to camp, Denise reportedly cried. By that evening, however, she had met Lori and Michelle, and they immediately like connected.
oh, that's so cute.
I know. I'm like feeling sad already. Thinking about this, but we'll move past the sad stuff relatively quickly. So Lori, Michelle, and Denise did not arrive as a group. They came from different families with different expectations and different levels of familiarity with the camp. By evening, they had been assigned to the same canvas tent in the Kiowa unit. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Camp Scott. It's located in the wooded hills outside Locust Grove, Oklahoma, which is sort of a rural area. It was not a campground arranged around one central clearing. Its units were dispersed through trees and connected by footpaths. So sort of like little isolated islands,
Yeah.
tents.
Oh, I would be scared to stay there.
I know. I see. I kind of like that stuff. Like I would take a scary book and like scare myself basically.
Yeah, but
'Cause
not at camp. You would just go stay in the evening.
no, exactly, yeah. And then I would take my limo home. So the tents were constructed of canvas on wooden platforms. So in other words, there's no locking doors. With campers separated into small groups and counselors housed nearby, but not inside each tent. So even the counselors are not like integrated.
Hmm.
The layout was intended to create an outdoor experience, which sort of sounds cool, like versus everyone being like crammed together.
Hmm.
After June 1977, that same layout would be examined as a security problem. That first day was wet. Rain changed the evening program, sending campers back toward their tents early. Inside tent 8, Lori wrote home, and Michelle and Denise settled into their new surroundings. At some point, the camp became quiet. Later, witnesses would describe noises in the night, sounds that seemed unremarkable at the time. No surviving witness could say exactly when the girls were taken or describe the person who entered their tent. During a pre-camp training period, a threatening message was reportedly found after a counselor's belongings had been disturbed. According to some accounts, it referred to the killing of campers and was initially dismissed as a cruel prank. Its precise wording is unclear and it's been retold in different ways, so sort of take that with a grain of salt. Like, I don't
Mm,
know if that's sort of like urban legend at this point or like a game of telephone with what the thing actually said, but
right.
that's the story that a lot of people are sharing. So that next morning, the girls' tent was empty, but their absence wasn't initially alarming. Children at camp could be walking to a washroom, visiting another tent, or beginning an early activity. Then a counselor found the first body along a path beyond the tent area.
Oh my gosh.
The remaining two girls were nearby. So they'd been removed. They had been taken during the night without
On
awakening.
this was night one.
Night one.
Jesus.
Yeah.
They didn't even get to enjoy camp.
No. They made friends and that was
About the end of it. Yeah.
so camp leadership was alerted and law enforcement began to arrive. Buses brought the surviving campers back to Tulsa. As parents arrived, officials checked names from a list to make certain no other child was missing. For most families, the list ended with relief, but for three families, they received a different kind of confirmation, obviously. Shortly after 1 o'clock that afternoon, the girls arrived at the Tulsa office of Dr. Neal Hoffman, Oklahoma's assistant chief medical examiner. Hoffman would later testify that the examinations were performed separately and in a fixed order. So Denise first, Michelle second, Lori third. The results established that Denise died from ligature strangulation. Michelle and Lori died from blunt force trauma to the head. Those conclusions would not be contested by Gene Leroy Hart's defense. So, a little bit about Dr. Neal Hoffman, because this is the thing that you hear about a lot. And like, how are these investigations handled? Like, did they do a sloppy job? Did they do a good job? By all accounts, they did an excellent job here. So, Dr. Neal Hoffman was responsible for investigating sudden, unexpected, and violent deaths, determining cause and manner of death, recovering evidence through examination, supervising medical examiners in northeastern Oklahoma, and his qualifications. I'm not going to read all because there's a lot here, but just to give you a little bit of background on him, he had scientific degrees and medical degree from the University of Wisconsin. He worked in forensic pathology in Cleveland. He had military lab experience. He had certification in anatomical and forensic pathology, lots of different places that he worked, including North Carolina, Alabama,
So
Cleveland,
lots of distinctions for
lots
this.
of distinctions. And the final one to really like make this all make sense, he had done approximately 1,650 autopsies during his career at this time.
Mhm.
So he knows what he's doing. So, talking about the crime scene a little bit, investigators were left with a collection of objects rather than a surviving witness. So, sleeping bags, clothing, cord, black adhesive tape, biological samples, hair and fibers, and a flashlight found near the scene. Each would have to be collected, interpreted, and connected first to the crime and then hopefully to a person. Decades of retellings often compress a scene into one sentence. The girls were bound and taped. The hearing record is more precise. So the document I read said the same materials were not found on every child. Cord was documented on Denise and Michelle. The black rough surface tape described by Hoffman was associated with Denise. And those distinctions matter because a case is built from details, not from the simplified version people remember. And I feel like that's what a lot of like TV shows, like episodes about this, things like that, sort of leave out those details.
Mhm.
So then begins the search for Gene Leroy Hart. He didn't become suspicious because he disappeared after the murders. He had already disappeared years earlier. Hart was a convicted fugitive who had escaped from the Mays County Jail and remained at large in the woods he had known since childhood. So he's just been living in the woods.
Oh my God.
His criminal history, his familiarity with the land, and his possible access to hiding places near Camp Scott made him an obvious person for investigators to consider.
Hmm.
However, Hart received significant support within the local Cherokee community and among people who believed authorities had treated him unfairly in the past. And there may be some truth on both sides, you know?
Hmm.
Some people even had bumper stickers that read, "Welcome to the heart of Gene Country." And Hart is spelled Hart, like his last name.
Oh,
So
goodness.
it's like a real thing. It's not just
Yeah.
people talking, like they're really supporting him.
Right.
So the state's case was developing in a community that was already divided. To prosecutors, Hart was a violent fugitive whose familiarity with the area helped explain how the killer entered and disappeared. To many of Hart's supporters, he was a Cherokee man being blamed for a crime so terrible that authorities needed someone, anyone, to prosecute. So, a few things that I was thinking about on this, like the Cherokee had a historical distrust of law enforcement. I think for reasons we all probably understand, the racial and political dynamics surrounding this case and the area should be considered, right? So also Hart was popular. Um, the people that knew him as one type of person,
Right.
which doesn't mean that that's how he was all the time, but that's
Right.
what they knew him as. There was a belief that he had been previously treated unfairly, and probably the most important is the Cherokee Nation's interest in ensuring a fair trial for one of their own, which, of course, in April of 1978, remember, we're talking June 1977, so jump ahead to April of 1978, the manhunt ended in the Cookson Hills, so obviously a very rural area. Officers found Hart in a small rural hideout after months of searches, reported sightings, and public speculation. He had evaded capture for years, and now the state would have to explain why his ability to hide also proved his involvement in the murders. So now they have to connect the dots. Back to the autopsy room. The medical examiner's office did not replace the crime scene, it sort of extends it. Hoffman instructed that the bodies not be disturbed until each had been assigned a number and an order of examination had been established. Before clothing or coverings were removed, investigators searched their surfaces for trace evidence. Certain areas were exposed to iodine vapor in an attempt to develop latent fingerprints, and then each layer was photographed before the next was moved. So they're really like following a
Protocol.
process. Yeah, exactly. Protocol. That's the word. The investigation predated, obviously, modern forensic DNA testing, but investigators still collected biological material with future comparison in mind. Samples were taken from each child and divided between glass slides and labeled tubes. Hoffman retained some slides for staining and examination. Other samples went to Janice Davis of the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Clothing was bagged and labeled. Hair and nail clippings were retained. Tape and cord were transferred as evidence.
Wow, they
Collecting
really
biological,
did their due diligence on this.
they did, and I'm getting like really deep into detail, but it's all to sort of set the scene for what comes next. Hart's attorneys moved to prevent the autopsy photographs from being introduced in court. Their argument was not that the photographs were false, it was that the medical facts had already been accepted, making the images more emotionally powerful than legally necessary. Prosecutors responded that they had already removed many photographs and intended to show the remaining images only to the judge. They also don't want to upset families, right?
Right.
So the court admitted them, but ordered that they not be displayed publicly or circulated in any way that might influence future jurors. One of the state's most memorable claims concerned a hair recovered from adhesive tape. A state examiner said that the hair was microscopically consistent with Hart's known hair. And that's where wording matters, right? So consistent with doesn't mean the hair could be uniquely identified as Hart's.
Right. There's not like a DNA match.
Exactly. Yeah, because we're not quite there yet. Prosecutors argued that the hair gained significance when considered with the rest of the evidence. So yeah, it's not like hard evidence, but there's enough. What do you call it?
Circumstantial.
Circumstantial. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
enough circumstantial pieces that are all connected to tell the story. That's what the prosecution is saying. The defense argued that the state was building certainty out of a comparison that can never provide it. Near the crime scene, investigators recovered a flashlight. It wasn't treated as one object. There's tape, paper, plastic. They were all removed and entered separately as evidence. Prosecutors later argued that the flashlight could be connected through other evidence to places associated with Hart. The defense pointed to a problem that was easier to understand. A print recovered from the flashlight was not Hart's. That did not prove Hart never handled it, though, right? He could have been wearing gloves.
Right.
But it also meant the most individually identifying evidence on the object pointed to someone else, or at least to an unknown person.
Right.
The trial required jurors to interpret several forms of comparison evidence. Blood and bodily fluid testing could place a person inside a broad category, but rarely identified one individual at that time. A footprint found in blood became another point of dispute. Hart's defense said its size was inconsistent with his feet. Prosecutors did not need every item to identify Hart independently. Their theory was that all of the evidence collectively pointed in the same direction, which I already sort of said. But the defense asked the question, what happens when some of those arrows point somewhere else? The state also relied on a place known as Cellar Cave. Prosecutors said property removed from Camp Scott during the night of the murders was later recovered there. They presented testimony linking Hart to the cave as one of his hiding places. If those links were reliable, the implication is pretty solid. Hart used the cave, stolen camp property ended up in the cave. Therefore, Hart may have carried it to the cave.
Right.
But this is all still circumstantial. So the defense could attack who had access to the cave, when the objects arrived, and how securely Hart could be connected to them. Hart's attorneys did not have to identify another killer or explain every hair, print, object, or biological sample. They just needed to show the state's interpretation was not the only reasonable one. So again, a hair could be similar without being his, a flashlight could be connected without being carried by him, and so on. So, in a nutshell, they're trying to establish reasonable doubt.
Of course. And doing a very good job at it, by the way.
They are, and that's why a not guilty verdict was rendered. So Hart left the courtroom acquitted of the murders, and Laura, Michelle, and Denise still had no legally identified killer. 2 months after the acquittal, at the age of 35, Gene Leroy Hart collapsed in a prison exercise yard and died from a heart attack.
What?
Yeah. Prosecutors could continue to believe. So remember, he was acquitted for this, but he was on the run for something else. So he did end up back in prison.
Right.
So
Where
prosecutors could, what's that?
I said where he died.
Yes, yeah. So prosecutors could continue to believe that they had the right man, and supporters could continue to believe Hart had survived an attempted framing. DNA technology did not exist when Gene Leroy Hart died, or went on trial or died in 1979. A decade later, investigators tested preserved biological evidence from the case. The early testing produced only partial results. Hart could not be excluded, but the available profile was not sufficient to identify him conclusively. So the evidence remains in storage, and of course, science continues to change. And then decades later, Mays County Sheriff Mike Reed reopened the records, reviewed the competing suspects, and arranged for another round of testing. In 2022, Reed announces his conclusion. The DNA points to Gene Leroy Hart. So it's finally, and so as someone who's sort of followed this case through my life, I actually never heard that news. So when I was
Mhm.
putting this together, that was like sort of a crazy update for me to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Did
I
they
ended
ever discuss like what his motive was?
Well, I didn't get into like the grisly details, but it was a sex crime.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
I think that was probably it.
Yeah.
And he had a history of sort of similar violent crimes.
Okay. And so there are like books and stuff about this.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, there's more than one. The one I know is called Someone Cry for the Children, which is out of print. So it's like $100 on eBay.
Right.
At it. So for decades, some investigators, jurors, and outside observers questioned whether more than one person had participated in the crime. They pointed to different bindings, an unidentified bloody footprint, and the physical difficulty of controlling three children alone. Reed said his review led him in the opposite direction. He concluded that the bindings followed the same pattern, like of application. He believed the footprint likely came from someone who entered the area after the murders. And the DNA, he said, accounted for the victims and Hart while excluding the other suspects investigators had examined. So his conclusion is that Gene Leroy Hart acted alone. I'm looking through my notes here. Is there anything else I want to touch on before I wrap this up?
Mhm. So this was a Girl Scout camp then.
Yes,
Okay.
Girl Scout camp.
I wonder if they sued the Girl Scout camp. I don't think people sued as much back in the day.
Okay, so they did. I actually have this in my notes.
Ah,
So, um,
I
in,
would.
in 1985, a civil trial occurred, and basically, like, was the organization responsible for, like, did they do enough to protect the children that stayed there? So, Lori's and Denise's parents alleged negligence by the Girl Scout Council and its insurer. The Guse family did not join the action. I can imagine they just didn't want to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like one more trial to have to sit through. I would be all up in there though.
I would too. I would be suing and getting money.
Yeah. So I couldn't find the outcome of that case, but I know that it did go to court.
Yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
they may have settled or something like that,
Right.
you know, just to keep it somewhat. I mean, how could it be out of the press? I mean, that is a huge story. I can't believe I've never heard of that before. I'm going to have to look up more about this because I want to know like more details. And I like the angle that you went though. It
Yeah.
leaves me wanting more.
Yeah. And there's a documentary. Oh, shoot. I forget what it's on and I forget what it's called, but I know that it's hosted by Broken Arrow native, Broadway star. Damn it. She's in Pushing Daisies. Hang on. I'm looking it up. Kristen Chenoweth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Kristen Chenoweth hosts it. And I actually started watching it when it first came out. This is maybe like a year or two ago,
Hmm.
and I didn't get very far with it. But it's out there on
Yeah,
streaming.
yeah. Someone walked up to me in a Costco one time and asked if I was Christian Chenoweth.
I mean, I could see.
When I had longer, like really blonde hair,
uh,
it was when I lived in Seattle. I was just like, why would Christian Chenoweth be at a Costco
in
in
Seattle.
Seattle, Washington? Like,
Yeah,
that makes absolutely no sense.
yeah.
Well,
All right.
that was a that was a really good story. I think that overall that was like a really good episode story.
And it's
You
sort of very technical compared to what I usually try to do. And you know me, I usually don't try to do stories like this one,
know. Mhm.
but because it sort of is literally close to home, and
Well, yeah,
it's
there
a
were
story.
people from there.
Yeah, yeah, my aunts went there. Yeah, it just felt right to it's one I've sort of been sitting on for a long time. I was like, I don't know if I ever could actually tell the story because I didn't really want to get into the crime itself. I didn't want to do the story, and then I found that those records, and I just started thinking, well, maybe that is the story I want to tell. And then if you want to go explore the case further, it is interesting, and there's tons of content out there already for it. So I mean, yeah, it was a little like dry and technical. And this is also one of the reasons why it's taken us so long to record again is you've been waiting on me to finish it. plus all the other stuff that's been happening in our lives.
I was about to say, what has been going on? It has been a moment. Speaking of home, I think you just got home, right? Like, haven't you been traveling for
I did.
the
I
last
was
week
gone.
and a half?
Yeah, I was gone for 10 days. I went to Savannah, Georgia for a celebration of life. Um, and then, so I stayed there for a few days and I worked remote also. Like I wasn't completely offline
Yeah.
or away from work, I should say. And then I went from there to Pennsylvania because Josh's family has a cottage up near Lake Erie at a smaller lake. So we go up there every summer. So I went up there for a little bit. He's actually still there. He stayed with the dog. So
Oh,
I'm home alone. And so, okay, I'm going to try to not make this long winded because I'm like hogging the episode, but some like crazy shit. When I got back, my AC had stopped working. So I've got dead plants. It was 97 degrees in the house.
oh no.
Yeah. And I got back here at like 3 p.m. So I
In the heat of the day.
in the heat of the day and I was dressed for travel. Um and travel for me is I'm always cold. So I was like wearing extra. So I immediately like stripped down. I threw on like my oldest t-shirt. It's got like holes and stuff in it just cuz it's like thin and comfortable
Yeah,
and threw on some shorts and I had to leave. So I drove to a bar
of course.
as one does. Okay. There's so many layers to this. The AC and it gets fixed, right? So that part of the story's done. The bar, however, the bar that I go to is a local gay bar, and I have been going with Megan. We'll go after work to do more work. Like we'll bring our laptops in, and she and I will sit together and like knock stuff out. So we really just sort of interact with each other at the bar and not with anyone else, except for the bartenders. So then Megan goes out of town for a month. Then I'm going to the bar with my laptop alone. And then people want to start talking to me. So I start to make friends with some of the like the regulars, right?
Hmm.
Sorry, there's so many things have happened. I feel like I'm like transitioning into a completely different story, but I'll just do that because this is like very recent. So Josh is gone. Josh never goes to that bar with me because typically it's I go in there after work and then I go home.
Hmm.
And I also, when I'm there, I don't talk a lot about my personal life. Um, you know me, like I crack jokes and say inappropriate things,
Yeah.
and
The
that's and no one really asks. Like I've gotten like, "What do you do? Like, what do you do for a living?" And I'll tell them I work in fundraising, and stuff like that. But no one has ever asked me there, like, "Oh, do you have someone or whatever?"
Yeah. I
So it
mean,
just
and in some places, like you just want anonymity a little bit.
well, okay, and that's part of it too, because I've been stressed at work. I've been stressed at home for other reasons, and so it's sort of been like a little, um,
Refuge.
yes.
Hmm.
So that's exactly right. I don't want to talk about my life. Like I'm just sort of interested hearing what's going on with other people
Yeah.
and being able to laugh and
And
make jokes.
get out of your head and your life for a little bit every day.
110%. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. And I'm not really even thinking about because most of these guys are older, like significantly older. So one of them I talk to quite a bit. Like I have like good conversations. He's um, interesting guy. He's funny. He's got like a good laugh. So I like hanging out with him. Well, he's probably like 70 and he goes, so, obviously like I'm an old man and I think you're really handsome and I enjoy like talking with you. It's like, would you be opposed to grabbing dinner sometime? I was like, no, like that's cool. We can do that. In my head, it was like he sort of qualified it, so it didn't sound like it was a date to me.
Hmm.
So we went to dinner last night and he was like dressed up for it a little bit, like not like his usual like casual attire. And he was like a little bit quieter too. Like
Hmm.
It's like nerves or something. And then he's like, yeah, it's been a long time since I've asked someone out. And I was like, oh shit. So I was like, okay, now I feel awkward and uncomfortable because I've talked to him for a few weeks and I've never said anything about being in a relationship.
Mm,
So now I feel like I've been deceptive when that's was not my intent, right?
right, right.
Fuck. So I'm like, okay, how do I handle this now? So thinking quickly, I said, well, when was your last relationship? He says 15 years ago. Like he's dated since, but his last real relationship was 15 years ago. And then he asked me, when was yours? And I said, well, I'm in one right now. I said, and this isn't, anyway, I told him that my partner's in Pennsylvania for a few weeks. And um, yeah, so I've been alone, which is why I'm spending more time out, like at the bar. Anyway, I don't know if I fully communicated it the right way because I also was like sort of felt on the spot. And I
Right.
was trying to be sensitive and I didn't want to feel like or look like I was an asshole for not sharing. So I don't think I phrased it in the right way. I don't think he fully understood what I was saying was that I am currently still in a relationship. He's not living in Pennsylvania. I don't know how it came across exactly, but at the end of the night, I still was under the impression that he thought it was a date. And all this to say, like, I like older dudes, and if I were single, I'm not saying I wouldn't go on a date with someone
Oh, a
like
hundred
him
percent.
at that
Yeah,
age.
right,
It's just not the right time in my life to do that sort of thing.
right. Yeah,
So today, oh God, this is so frustrating. So today I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna go back to the bar, and all the other guys at the bar who he told he was going on a date with, I assume he's just telling them we're just going to dinner. But I now know that's not what he told them. So I was like, I need to text him today so that when they do ask him, he really understands
but it was just dinner.
it was just dinner.
Friend, yeah.
So I texted him and I was like, hey, I really enjoyed hanging out. I was like, I don't have a whole lot of friends in Phoenix, even though I've been here for 8 years. So it's nice to have someone new to chat with. And so I also don't talk a lot about my personal life. So I was like, thank you for listening. And then I was like, I'll probably be back at the bar tomorrow with my colleague, but I'll see you then. And again, it wasn't completely direct, but I think I used the word friend.
Right.
I Yeah, I think I put enough stuff. So he did respond. He said, "Sounds good." I feel like if he had misread it, he would have been like, "Oh yeah, me too. I had a really good time." Right? Like I think he got
Tried
it.
to, and would have tried to like extend the conversation or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like shit, and then also there's a bartender there who I think does know that I'm in a relationship because he asked Megan.
Mhm.
Um, and he's so handsome, Amanda. Oh my gosh, he's so handsome. And he's flirty with me. Like he's been flirty with me for a while. And this is always like that's fine. Like and
Mhm.
I mean that's my favorite. Like I love that.
Mhm. Nothing wrong with a little attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and generally it's when Megan is there too. So it's not like
Nefarious.
yeah, and it's nothing like overtly sexual.
Right.
But anyway, I also don't want he's been acting different toward me. And I don't know if I said or did something weird, which is totally my jam. Like if I'm gonna make someone lose interest in me, I can do that.
You're like,
That's
I
yeah,
excel at that.
that's on my resume. Um,
Oh,
but I'm wondering, I was like, did he hear about this date? And that's why he's being like weird. Could
right.
be. But also could just be something I said or did.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I still want to go there. I don't want it to be uncomfortable. Like it's like one of my spots, you know? So I'm
Right.
trying to
Yeah,
like,
that would suck if that was messed up because that's like a spot of yours that you like to go to.
yeah, like I have stress at home, I have stress at work. I don't need to now create like this weird vibe at my other place where I go regularly.
Your place of worship.
I mean, God, can I have anything? I mean, I'm sure I take the blame. I'm overly friendly. Not in like a I mean, I am overly flirty with some people. I'm overly flirty with everyone, Amanda. But I also just am friendly. Like I am
Yeah.
interested in people. I like to listen. I like to like laugh.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're not a bullshitter about it. Like, how there are people like who think that they're like that and they're like not really good listeners and that sort of thing. I'm like, you're like a good listener and stuff like that too.
Anyone who's listening to this episode right now is calling bullshit. They're like, this guy's not stopped talking the entire time. He hasn't listened to Amanda at all because she hasn't had a chance to speak.
Well,
Anyway,
I really have nothing going on except for the sweet sunburn that you can see that I got over the weekend.
did you go to the beach or was this from the pool?
I went to the beach and just, it was one of those days where it wasn't like just oppressively hot. This summer has been really warm and
Hmm.
it's been really, really hot here. And so I haven't been, and then there was that seaweed that's been
Oh
coming
yeah.
up all summer and stuff like that. So the beach hasn't been very inviting, you
Hmm.
know. But this weekend it was nice. And I went on Sunday and just sunbathed for a while and actually got a little too close to the, sun. I got excited, but I did put sunscreen on my face, so I didn't get burned on my face, of course.
That's good.
Yeah. But other than that, that's about it.
Um, I don't believe you because we haven't talked in weeks.
I know.
I think we'll have some catching up to do off of
Post to
recording.
yes, offline. Uh,
Um, do you have you been thinking about your next story?
I have, yes.
Okay,
I thought about it a long time ago, but I don't have any hints to give.
that's fine.
Well, I guess I could, but I don't know if they would be accurate. Um, Probably
Actually, actually, share it anyway because it'll
not.
just be funny.
Okay. Um, Cabin, I think California. Cabin, California, women.
Okay, so it's going to be a tent in Idaho with men.
There you go. And it's called Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, I'll bring the visuals. You tell the story.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, should we put this listeners out of their misery?
Yeah, it's been a long one.
Oh gosh. Well, if you would like to continue to listen, watch, dive into archives, whatever, visit us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple at the Forbidden Pod. And if you want to listen to, I'm doing a real poor job of this. It's been too long. It's been
I
like a
know.
month since we've taped.
We're rusty.
Yes, we are very rusty.
Trombone.
Uh, um, yes, the website. Dive into the archives at www.theforbiddenpod.com. You can look us up on the social sphere, sometimes Facebook, Instagram. Don't do TikTok anymore, I don't think. Um, yeah, that's not
No.
really our jam. And if you have feedback, just want to reach out, sending nudes, anything along those lines, you can do that at hello@theforbiddenpod.com.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
thank you for that story. Thank you for introducing me to a story that I hadn't heard of before. I
Well, thank you
appreciate
for
that.
listening to all the drama from the story and all the drama from my personal life.
Oh, there's more I know that we're going to get into shortly.
Yeah,
Okay. In the meantime, listeners, we thank you.
thank you.